evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever the fuck you're tuning in. This is another episode of the Backyard Buckets, brought to you by Backyard Blitz or Backyard Sports. With me, I got Ryan Brown. How you doing, buddy? Same vertical as Jokic. We're doing all right then.
yeah, NBA champ vertical.
Danger Bentley over here. How you doing, bud?
I'm feeling real dangerous, man. Feeling real dangerous today.
Good. That's always good to feel dangerous for sure. Well, we're coming off of history, right? We talked a little bit last week about Jokic. Hey, Dad, how you doing? Jokic and Murray making some personal history there with teammates going for 30-point triple-doubles in the NBA Finals. First of its kind, first teammates to go for a triple-double, and they happen to both be 30-point triple-doubles. Pretty spectacular. But the Nuggets go ahead and they make history and win their first NBA championship. It was actually their first appearance in the NBA Finals. They've been a franchise for 47 years. And they go ahead and get the job done, winning 4-1 over the Miami Heat. I think we all kind of talked about it and felt the same way. It did feel like Miami was just kind of outgunned, outmanned. It's like we lost Ryan there for a minute. We'll get him back here momentarily. But
Thank God.
It did sort of feel like, Miami was a little bit outgunned, a little bit outmanned. The Nuggets had everything going for them. They were the 1 seed in the West. The Heat had kind of snuck in the play-in. But they got hot in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Ran the table there, and then run up against a juggernaut, it seems like, with the Nuggets, winning 4-1 on their home court. Jokic, after the game, is his normal stoic self. The job's done. We can all go home, right? But he has a little fun at the parade today. He's out cussing on the mic and telling everybody he's having a good time. The horses can wait. I'll get back to Serbia and tend to my chariot races when I get there. But, Ryan, I'm going to go your way first. What are your thoughts from this series?
Well, first of all, I want to say this is the premier podcast for predicting NBA Finals.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
We have a 100% record. Every single person on this podcast has a 100% record. There's not many who can say that. I'm just
going to win some money on it too. Exact number of games and everything.
Yeah. Gary put his money behind it. So really, that's where I want to start. Is really our success.
Yeah.
But
3 for 3, boys.
Don't bury the lead here. We're the real winners this week.
I think it's awesome. Jokic was amazing. He was as good as advertised. For all the people who don't watch a ton of regular season basketball, there's a lot of people who watch, the playoffs primarily and stuff. I think they got to see someone who arguably was even better in the playoffs, which is hard to believe. When the game slows down, he was almost better. I also want to say it's great. I'm a huge ABA guy, as y'all know, and seeing an ABA franchise win that's not the Spurs is really good. Denver's had a great franchise since the ABA. A lot of great guys have played there. It's good to see them get a win. Miami, they're new. They're going to be in a weird spot, I think, coming up with their team. They got a lot of unusual things, but they played about as good as they possibly could play, and they were just overmatched. I mean, they would have to play the greatest finals probably ever to compete with a team with that much talent. Not saying they couldn't do it, but it was going to be very, very tough. And I give them a lot of credit for making it hard on Denver in a lot of moments, but Denver was a way better team.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we saw kind of how, not just getting it, right in terms of 4-1 in 5 games, but kind of how the series played out and what Miami was going to try to do to Denver in order to make this a series. And they were successful. Obviously, in game 2, they were super successful in kind of grinding Denver, but also shooting the ball really well. They were making open shots. But, it's hard to sustain shooting, 100% from the field, essentially, right? With the numbers Miami was able to put up in game 2, you had to figure they were going to have to do something Herculean to really replicate that throughout the rest of the series. And I think Denver, after losing one at home, I think it was a wake-up call for them, really, because when they went down to Miami, they just seemed that, whatever buttons Mike Malone pushed behind closed doors and in the media, right? We talked about that last week with him actually calling them out publicly. It worked, right? And they were a different team from game 2 to game 3. And even game 1, they kind of got away with being a little bit lax. And we heard Malone say it, right? But maybe that loss was really what woke them up. Bentley, how do you feel about this series, man?
I just want to highlight one of my own personal accomplishments. We had mentioned what the changes the coaches need to make, and mine was a change that the coach did not make, in that Michael Malone was not coaching to win in these fourth quarters. Not really pressing the gas like I thought that they should. And he, in fact, did make the adjustment, and not so much as motivating his team, but just playing his starters more minutes. It turns out, you leave your starters on the court for longer periods of time, good things happen. As noted in Game 5, when Jokic started the fourth quarter and played all the way through, whereas he usually does not start the fourth quarter on the court. But yeah, Ryan did a good job of highlighting that, and you as well, Gary, that Denver is just a better team all around. It's really a credit to their roster building. Going out and picking up guys in the offseason, not just this past offseason, but as we mentioned, Aaron Gordon played such a huge and integral role in winning this championship. Uncle Jeff, great dude to have. Wish we were still in Washington, but whatever. But I mean, all you can really do is tip your cap to Denver. They played a heck of a series. They're a really, really, really good team. I would not be shocked to see them win another one. I'm not going to say more than one, because that will probably be incorrect. And, as we noted, we're notorious for picking winners here. But if they win another one, probably not next year, but in the near future, it wouldn't shock me. Try not to be prisoner in the moment. There are parallels to what Milwaukee did with the young foreign guy who's a stunning superstar type deal. But yeah, it wouldn't shock me. Credit to Miami, though. They played their hearts out. They just didn't have the horses. They did everything they could besides make shots. And they tried. It wasn't for lack of trying. They were almost in every game. They definitely didn't quit, and they played really hard, but they were just outgunned at every turn, honestly. And Jimmy Butler, I don't know if it was when he hurt his ankle against the Knicks, but he wasn't the same. Even down the stretch against Boston in that 7-game series, he wasn't great. He was really good. He wasn't great. And he was going to have to be otherworldly in order to win this championship. But it just didn't happen. It's not a ding. It's not a knock. It just didn't happen.
I hate to give credit to Skip Bayless, because he's normally way off on things, but he had a tweet, and I'm just going to kind of give a little bit of a summation. It was, Jimmy had essentially like a 5 for 16 game without that last minute flurry where he hit 2 threes late. Mm-hmm. And then he got that weird foul that somehow was upheld on replay where he kicked Aaron Gordon in the junk, but still got to shoot 3 free throws. And he ended up with like 21 or 23 in the game. And really, without that last flurry, he was going to have a really bad game in a deciding game, right? In a game that they were closed out. So I think all eyes were kind of on him because of what he had done up to that point and where Miami was. And he was certainly responsible for quite a bit of, what got them there. I know we talked about Bam being, their best player probably, right? But Jimmy was the one that got the pub because of probably the Grant Williams play where he poked the bear and Jimmy went for like 12 right away and kind of pushed that series with Boston, and they were able to end up winning in Game 7. But, he was sort of a non-factor in this finals, at least in the way that we would have wanted him to be a factor. He was a factor, but not in a good way, right? He was kind of a negative factor for Miami in the end because you're relying on that guy, right? He's your guy. You're looking for him to lead. You're looking for him to carry the team. You're looking for him to score those crucial buckets, get you points, and slow down, rallies that Denver might have been on, kind of end runs, those sorts of things. And he wasn't that guy during this series, and it sucks because they got a lot out of Bam. Bam was better in this series than I thought he would be against that size of Denver. I think it was a little bit of kind of how they defended him, but also Bam was good. He was just good. I want to give him credit for how good he was. And if Jimmy had been Jimmy, maybe Miami has a better shot, right? But with Jimmy not being at his best, they were certainly 100% outgunned. Let's flip the script a little bit and talk a little more positively, though. Ryan, you posed this question. I'm going to go to Bentley first to get his thoughts on this one, though. I'm going to save you for last. Where does Jokic fit all time now? After he's got the back-to-back MVPs.
Yeah,
probably should have gone back-to-back, but that's a debate for another day. He's got a Finals MVP. He's got a title, obviously. Where are we fitting him all time now that he's got these accolades to go along with a lot of the regular season accolades that we've seen from him?
Yeah, that's a really good question because comparing eras is so difficult, right?
Absolutely.
But this is a guy, and when we mentioned superstars, like true elite superstar, all-time greats, those are guys that could not just play in any era. Those are guys that would dominate in any era. And I think that Jokic has solidified his spot on that sort of tier, right? I had a list from Rotoballer. They have him 9th all time, which I was on Basketball Reference earlier looking up guys that I thought may have been in front of him, just trying to find which guys have MVPs as well as Finals MVPs. And all these guys, I'll just read the list real quick. 1 is Kareem, obviously. 2 is Hakeem. 3 is Shaq. 4 is Wilt. 5 is Bill Russell. 6 is David Robinson. 7 is Patrick Ewing. 8 is Moses. 9 is Jokic. And then 10 is Parrish. So all of those guys fit the criteria of this, basically the same accolades that Jokic have. Again, comparing eras is very, very difficult. The game is completely different. Jokic's probably more skilled than some of those guys, but those guys were also not asked to do the same things that Jokic is asked to do these days, right? So I think that 9, you want to bump him up or down a couple spots, that's fine. But for me, he's definitely a top 10 center of all time. And if he continues on this trajectory, I'm not going to say he's the greatest center of all time, but he could be in the Mount Rushmore. He could be a top 4 center of all time. Because, as Ryan's name says, same vertical leap. As he ages, is he going to lose athleticism? Like, he'll just play even slower. Okay, all right, that's fine. Like, he's going to continue to make the right decisions, make the proper play, send the skip pass, hit every single paint attempt that he takes. The dude is just an all-time great. He's a top 10 center all time, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I like the closing point you made there, right? He's not a guy like, we had guys like Amari Stoudemire that were those big men that were really athletic, right? Dwight Howard, even Aaron Gordon on this team, right, when he was in Orlando, was really focused on athleticism. Blake Griffin's another guy who played kind of the 3-4 swing. I know they're not centers, but big men that are athletic, and it goes away, and we see what happens to them. Aaron Gordon has found his niche here in Denver, but he's not the guy who was the highlight reel that he was in Orlando. He's more of a do the dirty work role player on a team he's an important role player, but he's not what he was in Orlando. And other guys just fade away. Right, like Dwight kind of faded hard at the end of his career. Blake Griffin, he's had a pretty precipitous fall. When that athleticism goes away, we're not going to have that, right? Shaq, even to a certain extent, right? When he was no longer that physical dominating presence, Cleveland, Miami, even at the end of Miami, Boston, etc., he wasn't the same guy. We're not going to have that with Jokic, right? His game is built around, as you put it, making the right decision, making the right pass, putting guys in position to succeed. In terms of overall, right, is he a top 15, maybe 20 player of all time in your opinion? I know you didn't build the list. I'm kind of putting you on the spot here.
Yeah.
Are you putting him in that conversation? Top 10,
not yet.
All time?
No, you can't put him there yet.
So we're at the point where longevity is the next step for him, right?
Yeah, I mean he definitely, like, he's tracking to be that guy by the end, right? And I would say that he probably will be a top 15, 10 guy all time.
Just not yet.
But he's just not there yet. I mean, he's only 28. Like,
yeah.
Give me
another
2 more rings and maybe an MVP and then call me.
Cool. Ryan, dissenting opinion here?
I agree with Bentley on a lot of that. I think it's really tough to compare eras, as you all know how I feel about that. So I also brought up a list. So the top 75 guys that the Athletic named, right? So these guys are not necessarily part of the 75 team. They were just, if we made the 75 team today, here's who we would pick from the Athletic, right? Who I think are pretty good writers, even though they're firing all their staff.
Are they hiring?
No. If you make videos. So I'm scrolling through the list, right? And I'm like, where do I put Jokic, right? Just off the top of my head. And I'm at 25 right now. And John Stockton is at 25, right? So we're talking every position. And if you were to go, Jokic has done as much in his career as John Stockton, I think there's an argument for that. I think his highs are much higher than Stockton's. Stockton obviously has the years, like you talked about, the longevity. But at some point, the brightest stars burn out the fastest, and we have to respect those bright stars because he might retire at the end of his contract, and we have to, think about that. He might be like, yeah. So that puts him right on this list behind Giannis. And I think like Giannis and him are contemporaries in their era as far as their contributions and their all-time greatness. It puts them in the Elgin Baylor, Charles Barkley, Dirk Nowitzki territory, who obviously have like the cumulative numbers, but their ceilings are pretty similar. Elgin Baylor never won a championship, but one of the great scorers of all time. Nowitzki carried a team by himself to championship. One of the great scorers. Charles Barkley, MVP. His peak was super impressive as well. Jokic peak probably better than all of those guys, and that's pretty crazy to say. We're all witnesses. And so that puts him like right around 20, I think, all time, like 25 to 20. And I think there's legitimate arguments to be made. Obviously, if he does this even if he never wins another championship, but he plays at this level for 2 more years, like you're in the all time like pantheon, like not position pantheon, the entire NBA. Yeah. I think just on centers have dominated the league forever, right? So being 8th, 9th all time, I kind of have him at 8 based off this list, but right behind like David Robinson, Moses Malone, those types of guys, just because those guys played longer and he has to, play a little bit longer. But that is incredible at his age to even be in that conversation. So I think if you told me top 25, he's definitely top 75. He should have been on that list probably when they put it out, which is crazy to think because Doncic was on the list. So obviously they don't care about the longevity nearly as much. I think top 25 is a big deal. And I think that's kind of a fair assessment. And anywhere plus or minus 10, I think would be fair.
Yeah, I think I'm mostly, kind of in line with where you guys are at. I'm a little higher on him in terms of all-time centers. I have him above Ewing. I have him at 7 right there. But I don't, obviously that's within shouting distance of where you both have him. I just think that the way he impacts games is different than a lot of guys have done for so long, right, at the center position. You look back at some of the best passing centers we've ever watched, and everybody always talked about it because it was such a big deal. I think he makes it look so ho-hum at times, but we've talked about it on this show. He makes the right pass. He makes the perfect pass, and he puts guys in position to succeed. So I think that's an addition to the fact that he's averaging double-digit rebounds, the fact that he's averaging 25 to 30 points a game. Ewing, I think, was that archetypical center of his time. He was kind of a plodding, big body, physical guy, but Jokic has that plus the X factor, right? For all of these centers, the X factor, but the ability to step behind the 3-point line and knock it down at a really good clip. Obviously he was shot around 40% from the 3-point line in the playoffs, right, when it really mattered. So for me, that's kind of where I slot him. I'm in that 20 to 25, I think, all-time range. If I'm giving myself the ability, right, Bentley, you said, right, projecting, he probably gets there. I think, being a little bit liberal with the idea of kind of projecting where he's at. I do think he's 2025, and I think by the time he's done, we could be talking about a top 10 all-timer. With what he does and how he does it and how he impacts the game, I just think that he has the potential, and you have to think he's pretty likely, right, to avoid kind of catastrophic injury for the same reason that you mentioned it a moment ago, Bentley. He's not trying to play above the rim, right? He's not trying to jump out of the building. Those guys usually end up with those high impact injuries. So for me, I do think he's going to sustain. It's going to come down to what Ryan just alluded to, right? Does he love playing in the NBA? I think he loves the game of basketball, but when does he feel like he's done all he wants to do in the game and just go raise his horses in Serbia, right? Because it's obvious the connection that he has to that and how he feels about that. Are we going to lose him early because he wants to go do that? Is he going to retire early to go home and do that? I don't know. And that could certainly impact where he ends up in terms of all time, because it is about the numbers. We've been watching LeBron chase the scoring, number and the assists and rebounds and the total combination that he is in terms of whether or not he's the GOAT versus, an MJ or, along the lines of who you want to argue there. But are we going to lose him to just his desire to work on the ranch and raise horses? I don't know. That would be interesting.
One quick thing, the list that I was working off of, I misspoke. He is below Ewing on this list. I would personally have him above. I also said that everyone on that list that was above him had the MVP and Finals MVP. Ewing does not.
Yeah. Yep. Ewing never played in a finals, right? They made it the one year he was hurt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he played the finals. He played in the 94 finals against the Rockets.
Yeah, you're right.
And lost to Hakeem Olajuwon, who is a better player. I also want to clarify, Doncic was not in the 75 team. What I meant to say was he should have been. He's a top 75 talent, and you shouldn't care about longevity when you're talking about peaks, I think. So I just wanted to clarify. Put all the Eastern European players in there. Drazen Petrovic, Arvydas Sabonis. Put them in there.
Yeah.
Soviet bloc, top 75 coming next pod.
We'll read Mein Kampf before.
Oh, they won't like that.
Yeah.
Jokic definitely talented enough to be a top 20 player of all time right now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
It's just where you value longevity.
Yep.
That's all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's shift gears to a different segment here. So we introduced this segment back with the original incarnation of the Buckets podcast, and we revived the podcast, and now we're going to revive a segment we like to call Splash or Trash. This is kind of fact or fiction, right? Is this right? Is this wrong? Maybe why you think it's right or wrong. We call it Splash or Trash. All right, so our first topic for Splash or Trash is Nikola Jokic the new face of the NBA? Or I guess Splash or Trash, Jokic is the new face of the NBA. Ryan, let's go your way first. What do you think, bud?
First of all, I wanted to say I didn't know we had Skrillex in the budget.
Don't TMTS.
Because I've been doing this for fun, and he's getting paid. That's not really cool.
You're not getting paid?
Oh. Wow.
Awkward.
Yeah, Jokic is not the face of the NBA, so I'm gonna trash this. I think his problem is his personality. I love his personality, but for the guys who are not terminally online, which I am, but in a good way, he doesn't do it for them. Like what makes the NBA special, right, in comparison to other sports? Part of it is their adjacency in the modern era to hip hop culture, to what's cool, right? Like it's shown itself, right, since Michael, right, and even before that. But Michael really, made the league that, right. Jokic is punting those things. He's like, he's not what they want to do. Market. I think there's a lot of things they could do to make him a vital part of the story of the NBA, especially the European story, the worldwide game, which is a huge part of what the NBA is doing, across. And I think he's a good story. But the problem is the guy that I think that is the face of the NBA, which is Giannis, has that story, plus is like on social media, right? He's these things that they want, right, to get to the younger audiences. Again, I love Jokic. I think he's great. He's so hard to market because he has almost no highlights that go on like Twitter, right, or Instagram or these other things, right? It's like his highlight is like, wow, what a backdoor cut that guy made, and he did a perfect drop off pass, like, and like that doesn't do it for a lot of people. So doesn't mean he's not an amazing player. It's just that question tells me, that he's just not at that marketability level that Giannis is and LeBron before him, and LeBron is probably still above him in a lot of ways, just because the amount of pool he has and stuff. So yeah, I think he's probably like 8th, 9th, like if I was gonna guess, like in billing. If you're like the WWE and you're like, who are we putting in the Hell in the Cell main event? He's probably like in the undercard somewhere.
I'm putting Jokic and Steven Adams in there, baby. Have at it.
Number 15 in the Royal Rumble.
Oh, poor Jokic.
True.
Steven Adams gonna kill him.
And you mentioned Giannis. Another thing you get with Giannis too is the takes, right? The audio takes, the outtakes. You get a lot of that raw kind of here I am, open to the world. Whereas Jokic is, much more kind of resigned and ho-hum. And I think I think they're both naturally that way, right? I think Giannis is naturally a more open person, but I also think that Jokic is naturally a more closed off person. And, when you grow up in Serbia and live that hard life, you probably learn to be that way in some ways. It could be a culture thing, language barrier too. You're probably a little tentative in terms of what you're saying and how you say it. So, yeah, for sure. Giannis, that the idea of what Giannis is, the highlight reels, the outtakes, the audio takes, the interviews, certainly. Bentley, what do you think?
So I need to apologize for the people that came here today looking for more Hot Boogie Cousins takes, but that's not what I have for you right now. I have to agree with Ryan. This is trash.
We get no Boogie today?
Yeah.
He's the face of some other European league.
Jokic was the 12th best-selling jersey in the NBA this year, and that kind of shocks me, to be honest, that he was even that high. He did beat out Joel Embiid, which I thought was interesting.
Jordan probably outsold him by a lot.
Who did?
Jordan.
Oh, probably, yeah. I mean, this is just based off of active players.
Yeah, retired guys are beating him.
LeBron James is the face of the NBA until LeBron James retires. Steph Curry is, if we were doing rushing nesting dolls, it'd be LeBron and then Steph on the inside of that. Yeah, like it's. I think that there's a large Boston media army
for Jason Tatum.
Through media today that you see, especially in the podcasting space. There's a lot of Boston people. Jason
Al
Tatum.
Horford. Oh.
Yeah. Peyton Pritchard. Yeah.
Definitely Peyton Pritchard.
Yeah. I think that Jason Tatum is closer to being the face of the league than a lot of people realize. And I think the NBA is cool with that because he plays for a marquee franchise.
Oh, yeah.
He's clean on and off the court. He's an elite talent. Yeah, like he's a family dude. But to this point, yeah, Jokic not the face of the league. As much as I would like to see that because I think he's hilarious. And obviously it's just a blast to watch. The Nuggets were constantly on my NBA League Pass this year. Them and Orlando Magic, shout out Paolo Banchero, former Future Rocket great. There we go. That jersey's in the mail. Yeah, sorry, derailed there. Jokic, not the face of the NBA. It's a real shame, but he has no desire to be that.
That's a bad inside joke by Bentley. He promised to buy me a Paolo Banchero Rockets jersey when they drafted him, and we all know how that went.
Yeah.
So the jersey's in the mail, as he said.
Well, we thought he was going to go there
Yeah.
until
We
like 3 minutes before the draft
Right,
happened.
right.
And then it was like, oh, Paolo going 1.
And then Vegas just cashed checks afterwards.
Yeah, oh yeah. They sent death threats to Woj.
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with both of you. This is trash. It's a harsh word to put on it because I think that Jokic could be right, kind of a face of all that's cool and good about the NBA, the way he plays the game and whatnot. But he's not flashy enough. He's not flashy enough. The NBA doesn't want him to be the face of the NBA, right? I think the NBA loves his connection to Europe. They love his connection to a certain slice of the population right across the globe. But he is not the guy that they want as the face of the franchise or face of the NBA. They want the guy who's, jumping out of the building, smashing dunks and splitting double teams with a Euro step, that sort of thing. And, I think Ryan, you were the one that mentioned, right? They don't want the highlight of the guy who made a backdoor cut. He made a perfect dump pass off to him. So, yeah, no, I agree with you guys. It is a shame, though, because I think he's the best player in the NBA right now, but I don't think he's the face of the NBA. And I truly believe the NBA doesn't want him to be the face of the NBA. All right, next topic, splash or trash. The Nuggets are rightfully the way too early favorite to repeat. So let me caveat this with, I wrote this as they are the early favorite because I didn't realize Vegas was going to beat us to the punch with the actual fucking odds for next year, 2 days after the finals. However, Vegas never misses an opportunity to cash a check. So they've got the odds out. They are the favorite by odds. They're like plus 450, I think it was. Next closest is plus 500. So they are a favorite. They're not a heavy favorite, but they're a decent favorite with 50 points of juice between them and the next best odds. So, Bentley, I'm going your way first with this one. Are they rightfully the way too early favorite to repeat?
Yeah. Why not? Jokic is coming back. Murray's coming back. KCP's coming back. MPJ's coming back. Aaron Gordon's coming back. And as much as we have talked on this pod, especially about how important role players are, they are still role players. You can find them in free agency. Bruce Brown's going to get paid. So even though he has come out and said that he would love to come back and that money is not like a huge motivating factor for him, I still, you dangle an extra 20 million in front of someone. It's like, it doesn't shock me that they're the favorite to win next year. I think they're gonna be the odds-on favorite for probably most of the year, barring, of course, injury. But yeah, I don't see any reason. This is a splash for sure. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be the odds-on favorite to repeat next year.
I like it, Ryan.
Oh, this is tough. This is really tough. I went back and forth on this. I think with the way you framed the question, are they rightfully the way too early? Yes, because we have a lot of imperfect information, right? We don't know what free agency looks like. We don't know what the draft looks like. Not that the draft is likely going to change championship odds too much, unless Jaime Jaquez is some type of transcendent talent, in the end of the first or something. But
Christian Brown, dude. Christian Brown.
Right.
Yeah, I mean the role players potentially will be available, but I think this is a splash. I think they should be the favorite. I think what's really difficult about it is I think are built for the modern NBA really well. I think they have the best player in the league, I think at worst second best player in the league. And if you look through the history of basketball, the modern history of basketball since like 2000, right? If you have a top 3 to 5 player, you have a really good chance. Well, that rules out like 25 teams. So that puts them in good company. I think there are going to be some competitors. I think Phoenix is interesting. I think Philly is still interesting if they bring back Harden. I think Milwaukee, depending on what happens with Middleton. But they're really lucky where I think that the West is really polarized, where they're probably gonna be near the 1 or 2 seed again, just because they're gonna dominate a lot of weaker teams. Just with how they're such a solid team, I think they have a good chance to make a run. Whereas a team like LA like doesn't show up some nights, and they're gonna probably be like a 4 seed or a 5 seed, like at best. So yeah, they'll probably get home court. They'll probably, it'll be tough for them, but the West is good at the top. But I think, yeah, I if I was going to bet on them on flat odds, I would bet on them. Obviously, the odds are not flat. There are other people I would bet on with the current odds
because of the juice.
Yeah, I mean, like Detroit,
San Antonio.
They're like plus 9,000.
Yeah,
that's printing money.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with both of you that this is splash, and I think mostly for me it's because of some of the reasons that Bentley mentioned. Right, they've got so many guys that were crucial to this run under contract, and I also think that this makes Denver an attractive destination for a lot of the guys that we saw. Right, when LeBron was making his run and when Golden State was a dynasty, those guys that round out rosters are the ones that can come in for those vet minimum contracts and help you in a certain way, right? If they're going to lose a Bruce Brown, they're going to need a guy coming off the bench that's going to be a guy that can score for them or run the point, run the floor for that second team. And, Bentley mentioned Gordon and MPJ's going nowhere, and KCP's under contract, and Jokic and Murray. And, those are kind of the cornerstones of this run. Christian Brown's still on his rookie contract. If they can bring Bruce Brown back, I think that's a huge coup for them because he was a really big piece for them during this run. And then you add maybe 1 or 2 guys that can get you to 8, 9, 10 deep, and you become even more dangerous than you were this year. They've done a really good job of managing the cap, right, to make this run. And it helps when you hit on a guy in the second round, right? When you hit on a guy in the second round who becomes the best player in the league. And then a Jamal Murray, right? He was, what he'd go, 10, 11, 12, I think, when they picked him. When you can hit on those guys and they become the most important people on your team, you can go out and reach on things like an MPJ, right? They went out and reached on him because of the injury history. Well, he's kind of paid off for them. Finals, he wasn't great, but he's been a good piece for them during large stretches of this season. And even in this postseason run at times, he was a good piece for them. So I think that, to me, right now, if I'm making a pick and I'm betting the odds, right, I think betting on the Nuggets because I just think that, if all things equal, right, Ryan called it flat odds, all things equal, if I'm just picking a team to win next year, I don't know what's ahead for a team we're going to talk about in just a moment, right? The Lakers. My dad asked a question in the chat. I'm going to pop up here in a minute, but we don't know what's ahead for the Lakers. They've got some guys on expiring contracts. They got some guys we think they're going to try to get rid of and rebuild in other ways. Phoenix, right? What do they do to replace CP3 if he ends up out the door? So maybe they've got a leg up in the West, and then you worry about what comes out of the East. Is Milwaukee going to be healthy? Are they going to be able to reload? I've got to say yes, man. This is splash for me in terms of them being rightfully atop the odds here with Vegas putting out their odds.
Can I add one thing that I didn't bring up? They have to really be concerned, I think. I was talking about the West. I think we have to consider one team that I think is going to be a little bit of a dark horse. They have a guy who's changed the game. And he cannot guard Karl Anthony Towns. That's all I want to say. Who's guarding him?
Who's guarding him?
Who's guarding him?
I do want to say I have a metaphor about that if y'all want to hear it real fast.
Absolutely.
If anybody knows my opinions on country music, I'm not a huge fan, but George Strait was a massive musician when I was a child. Still a massive musician. He's retired basically, but he basically took all of country music history and combined it into himself, right? He's like, I'm taking the best versions of everything. I'm not going to do anything new. I'm not going to write anything interesting, but I'm going to be the best possible version of something, right?
Be the Frankenstein of country music.
Yeah, and he did a great job. And I'm not comparing George Strait to Carl Anthony Towns because those are different leagues. But Carl Anthony Towns has taken the Mehmet Okur school of shooting bigs and has perfected it. Okay, that's what I want to say.
What a throwback name!
Wow,
dude.
wow.
What a throwback name.
Metacore.
So in that very, very small segment of basketball capability, he has changed the game. in literally one thing. And
oh, that's so good.
Technically correct's the best kind of correct.
Yes.
Jesus Christ. Metacore, a name I did not expect to hear today.
In the same metaphor with George Strait. I mean, that's
we're 3 episodes in, and we've had George Strait and Mehmet Okur in the same episode.
You don't get that anywhere else.
You don't get that anywhere else. On top of the correct prediction in the NBA Finals.
Take that to the bank, Ringer.
Call me Bill.
So my dad asks, are the Lakers going to need to rebuild? And I'll go first here to say, like, I don't think they can, right? I think they have to kind of do their best to reload around LeBron and AD. I think in the long term, they're going to end up kind of holding the bag because of the shots they've shot at this LeBron window. They wanted to win 2, 3, 4 championships with him in LA. They got one, right, which is great. And I think most franchises and fan bases would take that, but it's the Lakers, right? They were expecting more from a LeBron AD pairing, and they haven't gotten it because street clothes can't stay healthy. But I do think that long term they're going to end up holding the bag because I don't know how long AD's got left at his peak, even when healthy. He's still, I think he's a step slower than he's always been. He's a little bit more gun shy than he's always been. I don't know that he's the game changer that he's been, early in his time with the Lakers, but also in New Orleans when healthy. So they can't rebuild. Do I think they need to? Probably. Like if they could trade LeBron and get 2 stars and a pick, that might be the right move, but they're not going to make it, right? So do they need to? Probably, if they want to sustain any sort of success after LeBron retires in the next 2, 3, 4 years. But I just don't think they're going to. Ryan, what do you think on this question?
Yeah, I mean, they can't. They don't have the assets. The Buss family is not really one for tanking. I mean, we saw how long they tanked during the Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram time period.
It didn't last very long.
Yeah, they're not really built to do that. They're not in a market that is built to do that. They don't have the luxury of a mid-market team to do that. And I think that really limits them in a lot of ways, right? They have to be very aggressive in their team building. Anthony Davis trade basically made it impossible for them to rebuild unless they traded him, got assets, traded LeBron, got assets, traded every role player, got assets. Like, it is such a monumental task as far as salary cap for other teams, like trying to trade guys like that. I think you could get off Anthony Davis if you wanted to. Like, if that was what they decided for some odd reason, right? They were in a fugue state and they're like, we need to rebuild. The Lakers fans will forgive us. They're wrong, but they could. You could get off Anthony Davis. I don't think you could get off LeBron. I don't.
I think it'd be tough right now.
I don't think you could.
You can get off LeBron.
I think you'd have to give up assets probably, and I think that would be difficult. I don't know what team would trade for him. Basically, like Minnesota and play with another guy who changed the game. I mean, really, right? Like Rudy Gobert, I guess, but that doesn't help the Lakers, right? Like the salary matching is never going to help them. Russell Westbrook, it doesn't make any sense. It's just they're locked into the salary cap. The new salary cap is really going to screw them. They basically are super limited, and they deserve every bit of it.
Do you give them any odds to land Dame Lillard? Because I think right now, if you were to tell me that Dame Lillard went to the Lakers and they give up a couple of guys maybe that are 4, 5, 6, 7 in the roster, Maybe they gave up some future picks. And you put Dame Lillard with LeBron, with AD, maybe that looks like what the rebuild, right? The immediate rebuild is. And that's not long-term sustainable either, right? That's punching at another window with a guy like Lillard who's probably got 2 years left in terms of peak Dame, and then you get him as a shooter off the ball for another 4 or 5 years probably because he's fucking so good at shooting from anywhere in the goddamn gym. But if they went and got a Dame Lillard, if they were able to make that work, do you think that looks like a pretty good rebuild for them in terms of competing next season?
Yeah, I mean, competing next season, that's what they should be doing. Not necessarily Dame, but they should be competing next season. They're built like when I think about like chances of winning, right? Because to them it's like championship or bust, which I don't agree. I don't agree with from a team building perspective, but that's how the Lakers are.
That's
right?
who they are. Yep.
They have, let's say, a 5% chance to win the championship. I think that's a reason. Like 1 out of 20 seasons, if you ran it in a simulator, a Monte Carlo simulation, they win one of the 20, right? I think that's reasonable. That's pretty good. Yeah. Like that is like a chance. That's a chip in a chair, as to use a poker term. I don't think you give that up, and I don't think you can. I think Dame probably doesn't even move the needle that much, depending on what you have to give up, in my opinion. I think that, yeah, they need shooting, but like, does that come from one guy who's an awful defender, who's getting worse as he gets older? And Dame's an all-time great. It's just like I don't know how much they can cover up. LeBron can't defend like he used to. I'm just not a fan. It wouldn't shock me. That's how LeBron likes to build his teams when he's the general manager. So it wouldn't shock me if Dame ends up on the team with like Rui and like an Austin Reeves like sign and trade and like another guy. But like, you got to give up picks probably too. Like in what, 2027, like 2030, like I assume that's what you're giving up. Like you have to at that point.
Yeah.
So
they only have the one first rounder that they can trade in 2028 because they traded one this year.
And the Pelicans got swap rights for like 3 straight years, I think. Yeah. So they're in trouble as far as that goes. They just don't have a lot of assets fundamentally. It's really tough.
Bentley, what do you think, bud? Lakers?
Yeah, so I think the answer is pretty simple. No. Because you can't, because LeBron is 39 or whatever he's going to be this coming season. They punted his first year there, 2019. He re-signed an extension with them with kind of the under-the-table agreement, like, hey, we're going to compete. Get me pieces to compete with. And if you go to him and say, hey, we're going to rebuild, he's going to be like, all right, well, trade me then. Like, I'm not, I'm going to go back to Cleveland and win another title there. Which would not be the worst idea if I'm LeBron James. But this is about the Lakers. I don't think that you can rebuild. You can't put on another year with LeBron James. He's still an elite talent. He's still an elite player. He probably could load manage a little more during the regular season because, as we saw in the Western Finals, he lost his legs down the stretch.
Yeah.
Moving off of Anthony Davis, not a terrible idea. Don't know who you're really targeting to bring back in that trade. I'd like off the top of my head, I don't know, like a DeAndre Ayton, but like, is that doing anything for you? Because I don't think he's better than Anthony Davis. He's just younger and more durable. And you're not going to trade Anthony Davis in the West, probably. I don't know that their options are super wide ranging in terms of like adding talent, because as Ryan mentioned earlier, the new CBA with this essentially hard cap coming in as the second apron, like yeah, the Lakers are a rich organization, but like the Buss family is not a super wealthy family in terms of like ownership groups, right? So like, how deep into the luxury tax are they willing to go to add talent, because their main source of income is the Laker organization, right? So it's like we're robbing from Peter to pay Paul here. I don't know what they're willing to go, like how far into the luxury tax they're willing to go to add talent to this roster. So do they need to rebuild? No, they need to add talent, but I don't know to what extent they're going to be able to do that this offseason.
Yeah,
they added talent at the deadline last year. They made it to the East or the West Finals. Like this team as currently constituted, now that will change with the Reeves deal and Rui needing to get paid as well. Like the Lakers right now will not be the Lakers that take the court in October or whenever. So like it'll be different. Will it be better? I don't know, but it's definitely going to be a different roster.
Yeah, so I think the bigger challenge for them is that they can't necessarily go into what we would consider a rebuild, right? It's a matter of kind of maybe a reconstitution of what's there. Plus, is it one or two guys from free agency that are better shooters than what they've had, right? With the guys that need to be re-signed for one, and two, the guys they traded for at the deadline. And what are they going to do with D'Angelo Russell? I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is he going to be back? Because he was kind of the cornerstone of their moves at the deadline. That was kind of their big, hey, we're swinging for the fences. Here's the guy we're going to bring in. And then it turns out, well, Rui Hachimura was actually the more valuable piece that came in at the deadline. So
knew it all along.
Yeah.
Red's a big Rui
guy. I was mad as hell when we traded him. I love Rui. I thought the Wizards kind of didn't do well by him in terms of putting him in positions to succeed. I think they expected a lot early and never gave him a chance after that. And I think with the pressure off in LA, he was able to thrive a little bit in the playoffs. I don't know that he's ever going to be a second or third best option on a team, but I think he could be your 4 or 5 guy.
They do the same with Denny too. It's a problem. They don't not put Denny in a situation to succeed.
Poorly run franchise.
Yeah. Well, they're about to rebuild, they say. So.
Yeah. All right, let's get to our last splash of trash here. Jimmy Butler, a lot was made about him in the playoffs. And then, of course, right now, especially on this episode, we've talked a lot about kind of his shortcomings in the NBA Finals. Splash or trash? An NBA team can win a title with Jimmy Butler as its centerpiece. Ryan, your way first.
Oh, I was hoping to hear Bentley's. I was just going to say whatever the opposite of what he said.
That's what I'm going to do.
Oh, okay, perfect. Well, I'll make it easy for you because I think I know how you feel. I'm gonna say splash, and I think that's probably a hot take for a lot of people. But we talked about this new CBA. I think that is going to create enough parity that Jimmy Butler has a decent chance to win a title as a centerpiece of a team. What's difficult is he's not currently the centerpiece of his team. He's the centerpiece in media perception, but he's not the actual offensive or defensive centerpiece. But media perception, I think he could win a championship. I think if they face someone other than the Nuggets, because the Nuggets were a terrible matchup for them, they probably have a like 70-30 chance of winning, like 30% chance of winning like a series against a lot of the Western competitors. That, under unusual circumstances, is a championship team. I think he's good enough. He's a top 20 guy probably like in the league right now. It's probably unlikely. I would guess like a 1% chance, but that's not zero. And this is an absolute, and it says can in any situation Jimmy Butler win a title as a centerpiece. And I
like how you took the language and ran with it.
and I'm going to say splash. Though I think it's extremely unlikely that he ever is a centerpiece again, let alone wins a title as said centerpiece.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah, exactly.
Bentley, you agree or disagree?
Well, I'm going to tell you how there's not a chance. Right? Yeah, I'll say trash here, man. He's been to 2 finals in 3 years, didn't win either of them. I mean, what more do I have to say? No, so he going forward, people will probably view Jimmy Butler in a greater light than he previously was, right? Because he has gone to 2 finals in 3 years. Which is in and of itself a very, very difficult accomplishment, right? So props to him for doing that, but he's Was he 31? Something like that? 32 maybe?
Yeah.
So it's another year. It's another, what do you play, 30 finals games? Not even 30 finals game, or excuse me, playoff games. So it's another season, more finals or more playoff games. It's more miles on his legs. The dude he's extremely talented. He's a very, very, very good basketball player. But he's not the best
to be
at it.
34.
About to be 34. See? There we go. So, like, he's not the best at any one thing, right? Like, when he steps onto the court, he may be one of the best players on the court, right? But you're not saying Jimmy Butler is the best at this one thing. It used to be defense. Jimmy used to be an all defensive guy, all NBA defense. He can for stretches, he can at moments, but he didn't even lock down Aaron Gordon in this series. It's like, come on. So, well, this is not shots fired at Jimmy Butler. I think he's a fantastic player. He could definitely be a 2-man on a championship team. To have him as your centerpiece and expect to win a championship doesn't seem likely going forward.
Yeah, I'm with Bentley. I think the NBA Finals told me what I need to know in terms of whether or not Jimmy Butler can carry a team from start to finish as their centerpiece. And Ryan, I don't disagree with you that he's not the centerpiece in terms of roster composition for this Miami team, but I think that it was still apparent that they fed off of Jimmy. And his energy, his tenacity, his grit, his grind. So for me, I still kind of put him as the centerpiece of the team, maybe not the best player on the team, right? And those two things can be, in my opinion, they can be exclusive. So I'm saying trash on this because I just look at it as if Jimmy Butler is your centerpiece, if he is your best player, or if he is good enough to be still the centerpiece of your team, your roster's not good enough. And I think we look at this Miami roster and say, man, they were plucky. They fought their asses off. They ground everybody into dust to get to the finals. But once they got up against a healthy roster of a team that belonged in the NBA Finals, we saw what happened, right? They got run out of the gym 4-1. And I think they were fairly fortunate against Milwaukee that Giannis went down. I think they were fairly fortunate against the Celtics in Game 7 that Jason Tatum hurt his ankle on the very first fucking play of the game, because I do think that we were going to see history there if they had a healthy Tatum and they weren't relying on Jaylen Brown to be the top guy for that game for them. I do think that we were going to see that history. So I look at this Miami team and I say, if any team builds their roster around Jimmy Butler, they're doing themselves a disservice going forward. And of course, under the right circumstances, you probably could, win a title and whatnot. But I just don't look at this and say Jimmy Butler should be the centerpiece of a team that I look at and say they have a chance to win an NBA title, especially at 34, right? He's going to be 34 next year. So, all right. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of the episode. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Appreciate the comments. Dad, thanks for tuning in. NBA Finals are in the books. Just want to give everybody a little bit of a heads up. We've got some ideas brewing for some off-season material. Ryan's Corner came into play this week. New episodes. Expect them over the course of the off-season. We've been talking a lot about doing different things. So next week, we're looking at Wednesday, doing a draft preview, doing a mock draft. Getting some material out there before the draft on Thursday. Planning for some pieces over the off season, doing some maybe lists of top 10 guys that we can debate a little bit on the show, doing some kind of rotating drafts in terms of, the top 100, right? There's a few more spots left on that, for the preview of 25 years from now. Different things, building rosters out, building maybe the best NBA player, those sorts of things. So stay tuned. We've got plenty planned for the off season. Want to get some closing thoughts from you guys before we embark on what kind of sets the line of demarcation for a new NBA season. The finals has concluded and the draft is next week. Bentley, what are your thoughts, closing thoughts here as we progress into what will turn into 2023-24 NBA season?
So one of the most exciting parts of the NBA offseason is Summer League, right? We all know and love Summer League. I would like to go to Summer League one year in Vegas because everyone is there. However, this year's Summer League will be different because the number 1 overall pick will not be in Summer League this year. Well, he will not be playing in Summer League this year. I think it's already been announced that he's not going to play. But if it hasn't,
The NBA caught on that he was breaking news.
Wembanyama will be at the Summer League.
Yes, he will be at the Summer League. Will not be playing. Because he just finished his season, right? Or how many?
Yeah, they just had their. I think they lost in the semifinals, right?
Yeah, whatever.
I think they're in the finals, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, did they?
It's either still going on or it just finished. One of the two.
I know they were getting worked over a little bit in one of the games I saw.
Yeah, he scored 8 points.
Oh, they got swept in the finals. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, the finals they lost there. Okay, not the semifinals. Okay.
And he's getting drafted on Thursday, and it's just too quick of a turnaround for him. Injury prevention, all that stuff. That being said, Summer League will be a little different. Number 1 pick won't be there. So, it kind of sucks that we're not going to be able to see him play ball against NBA guys until the season starts. Kind of a bummer, but, it's just one of those things to live with. Obviously, the storylines, free agency, what happens to Dame or Middleton or, some of these guys that could potentially be on the move. That's exciting stuff that's coming up. It's always sad to see basketball go away for a while, but, we're excited for next year, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, what you got for us? Closing thoughts here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a great season. I'm happy I got to be on here to talk about it for a little bit. I think, I've enjoyed it a lot. What I will say is I love the off season, probably, on par with the actual games, which, is a little weird, I think, to a lot of people, but I really like the team building aspect of things, the evaluation, how teams navigate that, because every team is different and they all navigate it so differently and how they address things. And they all have completely different opinions of players and things than we ever will. Right. And I think that's really cool. I love the draft. I'm excited to talk about those guys. That's one of the best days. Every draft, NBA, NFL, all those guys, getting to see those guys' lives change. That's a great day. Me and my girlfriend love to watch it. She judges all of their outfits they wear, so we get to do that. And it's a great time. It's a life-changing
show. We'll do best and worst dressed at the draft.
Best worst dress of the draft. Not Jaden Ivey, according to her, as of last year. We love you, Jaden. Come on anytime.
Yeah, you explain your outfit.
Yeah. Tell us what you were thinking.
Paolo, he was not well dressed last year either.
His hair is a little wild too. I will say I'm excited to do more card shows. My plan. So my initial plan this week was to do Spencer Haywood. I talked about that. I will not be doing Spencer Haywood because Spencer Haywood's tough to get a hold of, but I will be doing Moses Malone, who I think is a one of the great top 15, 20 guys ever that is treated like he never played. And so I'm excited to talk about that. I'm excited to keep this going and do everything else. So thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I look forward to that episode. Moses is one of those interesting kind of time has almost forgotten him, and you get the talking heads that all the time, hey, let's not forget about, and he's one of those names that always seems to come up as, people are forgetting. He's almost an afterthought, but then the old head says, no, not so fast, young blood. Moses before Moses.
Yeah.
But all right, yes. So that brings us to our conclusion. Appreciate you guys. Another great episode. NBA Finals are in the books. Stay tuned. The episode will be posted. Will likely be going next Wednesday about the same time, 7 p.m. Pre-draft, mock draft. You can see how good or bad we do. I think the top pick is the one that's in concrete. So whoever in the coin flip draw gets number one, your job's already done for the first pick. But we'll do that in kind of an alternating fashion. go through the first round at least in terms of who we think is going to be picked where. And after the draft, y'all can let us know how poorly we did or how well we did. Let's see if we can keep our 1,000 batting average in place.
Oh my God, we'd be rich if we could get the draft 100%
Oh my
correct. We'd be the richest people in the world. That parlay would be insane.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'd have a tough time booking that one.
Yeah, no.
by the
Well,
moon.
I think everyone would take it though, knowing you're not going to get it.
Knowing you're not gonna get it.
You're gonna have a hard time collecting on that one.
Yeah, they'd sue you. Yeah.
All right. Well, for all of us here at Backyard Sports, thanks for tuning in. We are out.